Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Tensions escalating in the Middle East. President Trump laying out a timeline for a deal with Iran as the world's largest aircraft carrier heads to the Gulf. And President Trump is taking up another domestic tour. He's visiting a local business and a steel plant in Georgia this afternoon. He'll give remarks on the economy. Texas is suing baby monitor company Lorex for hiding its ties to China. What the Texas Attorney General is saying about the risks behind the company's products. A budget standoff in New York. Mamdani saying the tax the wealthy or hike property taxes, and experts warn the plan could hit first-time homebuyers hard. We break down who's really at risk. Iran is conducting a joint military drill with Russia, and the U.S. is ramping up pressure on Tehran and its Islamic regime. What Tehran says about the naval drill. Former South Korean President Yoon sentenced to life in prison. Why Yoon's democratic or dramatic fall from power may still end in a pardon.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for staying with us. President Trump laying out a timeline for negotiations with Iran as the USS Gerald R. Ford heads to the Middle East, and the president announcing billions of dollars of pledges to rebuild Gaza at his inaugural Board of Peace meeting in Washington. NTD's Washington correspondent Mario Otsu brings us more. President Trump laying out a timeline for negotiations with Iran as the USS Gerald R. Ford heads to the Middle East, and the president announcing billions of dollars of pledges to rebuild Gaza at his inaugural Board of Peace meeting in Washington. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu at the North Lawn of the White House. Mari, good afternoon.
Don, good afternoon. That's right. And President Trump is now suggesting that Iran has 10 days to make a deal with the U.S. as he says that they cannot continue to stabilize, to threaten the stability of the entire Middle East. He also says that the U.S. has just ordered 22 more B-2 bombers, and he reminds those present that it was those B-2 bombers responsible for Operation Midnight Hammer over the summer. That's the demolition of Iran's nuclear facilities. And this is coming as the U.S. sends its largest, the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford, to the Gulf. It's joining the USS Lincoln there, and it's expected to arrive in the eastern Mediterranean in about 3 days now. And this is happening also as a Russian warship is conducting drills, Navy drills in the Sea of Oman just a few days after Iran's Revolutionary Guards conducted drills in the Strait of Hormuz. The White House is repeating to Tehran that it would be very wise to make a deal. And here's the latest from President Trump. Let's take a look.
And we do have some work to do with Iran. They can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. You can't have peace in the Middle East if they have a nuclear weapon. And they can't have a nuclear weapon. And they've been told that very strongly. Maybe we're going to make a deal. You're going to be finding out over the next probably 10 days.
And President Trump is giving this warning for Iran at his inaugural Board of Peace meeting here in Washington, where 59 countries are in attendance. And the president is announcing that the U.S. is committing $10 billion to the Board of Peace and to rebuilding Gaza. And other ally countries present are committing $7 billion. Let's take a look.
More impossible problems can be solved as we go along this very beautiful path. I think it's a beautiful path. I think it's such an important day. Everything's beautiful. But the ancient wounds can be healed, and they are indeed ancient. This has been going on for so many centuries that our entire planet will be a better, safer, more beautiful, and more peaceful place for us all. We're going to be working with the United Nations very closely. We're going to bring them back.
Meanwhile, a federal arts panel appointed by President Trump is signing off on the president's plan to construct a 90,000 square foot ballroom in the East Wing of the White House here. President Trump is praising that decision on Truth Social, thanking the members of the Fine Arts Commission. And this White House ballroom is expected to be completed by summer 2028 and is funded entirely by President Trump and private donors. Don, back to you.
Okay, Mari, thank you for the updates. And that was Mari Otsu reporting from the White House. President Trump is sending the USS Gerald Ford, the world's largest warship, to the Middle East, plus a huge fleet of fighter jets and aerial refueling tankers in the largest military buildup yet. The massive military buildup in the Gulf is a potential indication that President Trump is preparing a large-scale strike against Iran if negotiations with the regime ultimately fail. It comes as President Trump is also urging UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer to back out of leasing the island of Diego Garcia to Mauritius. President Trump saying that it may be necessary for the U.S. to use the island to, quote, eradicate a potential attack from the Iranian regime. The president says that Diego Garcia is strategically located in the Indian Ocean and called it making a big mistake by leasing it to Mauritius. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns that unimaginable response would follow if Iran attacks Israel. He addressed combat officers in southern Israel today. Take a listen.
We are operating in close coordination with our great ally, the United States. I made clear to my friend President Trump the principles that, in Israel's view, should guide any negotiations with Iran. We are prepared for any scenario. And one thing is certain. If the Ayatollahs make the mistake and attack us, they will experience a response they cannot even imagine.
Netanyahu says dismantling Iran's nuclear infrastructure is essential to any deal. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to meet Netanyahu in Israel on February 28th. The talks are expected to focus on Iran. As the U.S. is ramping up pressure on Iran, the Islamic regime conducts a joint military drill with Russia. This just after the U.S. held nuclear talks with Iran in Switzerland. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the story.
Russia and Iran conducting joint naval exercises in the Sea of Oman on Thursday. This as the U.S. has deployed warships near Iran, while also holding talks with Tehran on limiting its nuclear program. A spokesman for Iran says the joint drill had been planned long before.
Joint exercises with Russia are part of our regular planning, both in the Caspian Sea and in southern waters, and are carried out annually within the framework of defense diplomacy activities.
Russia has a strategic partnership treaty with Iran, although it does not include a mutual defense clause. A spokesman for Russia also says the exercise had been planned in advance. The Kremlin highlights the tensions between the US and Iran in the Middle East.
We are currently witnessing an unprecedented escalation of tensions in the region. But nevertheless, we expect that political and diplomatic means and negotiations will continue to prevail in the search for a solution.
The Kremlin is urging Iran and other parties to exercise prudence and restraint. And Russian President Vladimir Putin meeting with the foreign minister of Cuba. Cuba is experiencing a fuel crisis as the US is working to stop its oil supply. But the Kremlin says Putin did not discuss anything related to the US in the meeting with Cuba's foreign minister. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
President Trump is hosting the first Board of Peace meeting today with dozens of countries attending. Joining us to discuss this is Brian Leib, foreign policy analyst and CEO of Henry Public Relations. So Brian, always great to have you on the show. I just want to start off by asking you, how much influence does the Board of Peace have? Because President Trump today says it's extremely consequential in terms of power.
Don, hi, good afternoon to you. I think today's Board of Peace kickoff was really big. I mean, you had the leaders of scores of countries that were there and billions of dollars that were committed to the reconstruction that's going to need to happen in Gaza. So I think it was a really, really powerful moment for the president and a good reminder to the world that American leadership is back on the world stage.
So Brian, making headlines, one point in the meeting is that the United States, President Trump announced contributing $10 billion to this Board of Peace. Your comments on that?
I mean, I think it's just a start. I think there's going to be a lot more money that's going to be pouring in, and I think a lot more is going to be needed. The reconstruction in Gaza is probably going to take hundreds of billions, if not more. So I think it's just the start of money that's going to start rolling in, and I think a lot of the world leaders that were there that you see on the screen right now, the Middle East was very well represented today. In fact, I think almost every single Middle Eastern country was there except Iran. So I think everyone's very committed and dedicated to seeing the rebuilding start to happen in Gaza. But we have to also be honest, Don, Hamas has not laid down their arms. Hamas is not keeping up with their end of the bargain. They're not disarming, they're not disbanding, and they're continuing to operate inside of Gaza. So until Hamas is removed, I don't know if they're going to be able to start rebuilding anything in Gaza.
You're right about that, Brian. Hamas has not disarmed. Can I just ask you on this point specifically, what is your optimism level that the Board of Peace can make sure that Hamas disarms?
You know, I don't know if the Board of Peace as a whole is going to make sure that Hamas disarms, but it's going to be up to Israel to make sure that Hamas disarms. And of course, Israel seems to have the backing of President Trump and of a lot of other countries to make sure that that happens. So, we'll see how this happens and unfolds, here, Don, over the next couple of weeks. But that really is the biggest impediment to anything moving forward right now. It's great that President Trump is able to convene this fantastic kickoff of the Board of Peace, and world leaders from all aspects or all parts of the globe were there to be part of this. But Hamas needs to disarm. Hamas needs to be shown the door. And if they're not going to do that, then I don't know if we're going to be able to move forward, like I said, with the rebuilding. So time will tell.
Right. We'll see how this unfolds in the coming weeks. And you're right, this is a major sticking point. So, Brian, I brought a clip here with me of Secretary of State Marco Rubio talking about what the purpose of the Board of Peace is. Let's just quickly take a look at this clip.
There is no plan B for Gaza. Plan B is going back to war. No one here wants that. Plan A, the only path forward, is one that rebuilds Gaza in a way of enduring and sustainable peace, where everyone can live there side by side with one another and never worry again about returning to conflict, to war, to human suffering, and to destruction.
So Vice President J.D. Vance also saying that the point of the Board of Peace is to making peace actually stick. So maybe you can just talk to us about some of the tools in its toolbox here that it has to maintain peace.
Well, I mean, the fact that there's so many countries from around the world that are united with the United States and with Israel in ensuring that there is lasting peace, I think is really the most powerful thing, because that's really what led to Hamas finally releasing all the alive and dead hostages was not so much the Israeli military campaign, but it was the world pressure, and especially the pressure coming from the United States and from Donald Trump. So I think, all of these countries working together in lockstep with the United States and Israel, we're going to get to a point where, Hamas is going to have to, make a move. And if they don't make a move, then perhaps Israel's going to have to go back into Gaza and really disarm them the hard way. And I think it's something Israel's capable of doing. I'm not sure if the United States and the other countries at the Board of Peace are going to be part of that. But certainly if Hamas needs to be destroyed and dismantled and disarmed, I think Israel's capable of doing that. And I think they'll have the backing of everyone that was at the Board of Peace today.
Yeah, and President Trump warning as well of consequences if Hamas does not disarm. So another point here I would like you to react to is that President Trump said today during this Board of Peace meeting, he's saying that this board is going to, I'm reading a quote here, going to almost be looking over the United Nations and making sure it runs properly. In your view, what does this mean?
I love that President Trump had this Board of Peace. It was a mini UN pretty much in Washington is what happened earlier today. And at the same time, Don, he made a point to say nice things about the UN Secretary General, and he said nice things about the UN. It's classical Trump, playing kind of both sides, from a diplomatic perspective, which is good. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think what we saw happen and unfold today was certainly could be another version of the United Nations, and one that hasn't been corrupted by a lot of bad actors and a lot of corruption and a lot of fraud and waste and abuse. So we'll see if the Board of Peace turns into some kind of a governing body of some sorts or oversight authority. But time will tell on that. But I really think it was it was pretty magical for the United States to convene, all of these world leaders from all parts of the world to come here today to Washington to pledge that they want to see peace happening in the Middle East. So I think it was pretty powerful.
Okay, Brian, just quickly, one last thing here. It stood out to me that President Trump said today that Russia and China could be part of this in some form. He didn't really elaborate on that. He said it doesn't work if you only have one ideology. You have to have all sides. Just your final thoughts on this.
Well, I think Russia and China are going to have to decide what side they're on. I mean, we see what's unfolding right now between the United States and Iran, and you have Russia and China that are directly supplying Iran with military supplies. Russia is doing naval war games with the Iranians. I think the Chinese are doing similar kind of war games right now, and they're trying to signal that they're going to stand by the Iranians if the United States decides to move forward, which I really think would be catastrophic for the Russians and for the Chinese. I don't think ultimately they're going to do that because I don't think they want to go to war with the United States. But yeah, I mean, I think both of those countries, the Russians and the Chinese, they have to decide, where do they want to sit? Do they want to sit, at a table of two or three leaders with the Iranians and with North Korean Kim Jong-un, or do they want to sit at the big boys table on the screen that you see right now with world leaders from over 30 countries represented? So they're going to have to make a decision in terms of where they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, this phrase has been used often, but China and Russia really needs to ask themselves if they're on the right side of history. Brian, it's been a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Have a good day.
The search for Nancy Guthrie is now in its 19th day, and investigators are still working through tips and leads without a leading theory on her disappearance. But they have ruled out the possibility that she was taken across the border. NTD's Arlene Richards has more on this.
Another day has gone by, and despite thousands of tips and leads, law enforcement still hasn't located Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. And several authorities are still grappling over whether the disappearance was a targeted kidnapping, a burglary gone wrong, or something else. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos told the BBC on Wednesday that he believes it is a targeted kidnapping.
But the evidence and the case as it unfolds will prove that or prove something else. But yes, I believe it was.
Investigators did confirm to several news outlets on Thursday that Mrs. Guthrie likely isn't in Mexico. According to the New York Times, authorities ruled out a lead on a purchase thought to be connected to the case after communicating with Mexican officials. Surveillance footage from Nancy Guthrie's doorbell camera captured one masked man wearing black gloves and tampering with the camera. Nanos told ABC on Wednesday there are more images.
We have so many images from Ring cameras and videos of traffic videos, intersection videos.
Fox News reports that authorities on Thursday are asking residents near Nancy Guthrie's home to share doorbell camera footage dated to January 11th from 9 p.m. to midnight, a date that aligns with the time frame of a Google search for Guthrie's name. Google data shows a search was conducted on January 11th for Nancy Guthrie's address and her daughter Savannah Guthrie's salary. The outlets say a spokesperson for the Pima County Sheriff's Office told them the FBI has been canvassing the neighborhood asking for footage. The Pima County Sheriff's Department is requesting doorbell video camera footage anytime from January 1st to February 2nd. Meanwhile, the FBI has posted another call for tips that will help them find Nancy Guthrie. They're still offering a reward of up to $100,000.
We run all leads down until we have no more lead.
Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Sheriff Nanos also saying that the case is not cold and urging the captor to just let her go. Joining us to discuss this is retired Las Vegas Police Lieutenant Randy Sutton. He's also the founder and chairman of the Wounded Blue. Randy, good afternoon to you. So the investigation has been going on for 3 weeks. Is the speed of this investigation normal relative to how much information has been found?
Well, there's a massive amount of information that's coming in as far as leads go. I believe they're up to somewhere around 25,000 tips coming in from either the tip lines or emails. That is a massive investigation, and you have to have incredible amounts of personnel that has to triage this information and then try and pare down what needs to be investigated immediately. So it's a big burdensome investigation. Now, if you look at the evidence that has been collected here, we have DNA evidence, we have photographic evidence, we have witnesses that have come forward with information that needs to be verified. And at the end of the day, it is up to the investigators to pare down what they feel is important and then concentrate on those leads. So this is a long-term investigation. To characterize this as a cold case, that is absolutely not correct.
Okay, so you mentioned thousands of leads, camera footage, DNA evidence. What do they really need to really crack this case?
Well, they need that one piece of information that will be key to cracking the case, and that is who did this and why. Um, Trying to develop a motive for this is critical. Victimology is critical in this investigation. When I say that, the study of the victim, they need to, and what they are doing is combing through every piece of correspondence, digital, telephone that is connected with the victim. They need to know who she has communicated with because this didn't happen in a vacuum. There is information there that will once pared down will bring investigative leads to law enforcement that will lead to the captor the captive excuse me the capture of the individuals who were involved in this.
So, Randy, I just want to ask you of your analysis of this surveillance video that captured a potential male suspect wearing a backpack. We've seen that video a number of times now. It's been out for a while. Can I just ask you, by your analysis, what jumps out to you from watching this footage?
Well, as we have heard, there's a ton of theories out there, and one of those is that this was a burglary gone wrong. I believe that the image that was portrayed on this video that was released, it negates that. Nobody. First of all, I looked at the crime statistics and the reports that have been reported in this area, and nighttime burglaries are extremely rare. You don't dress up like this individual did to go hit a house and steal jewelry. Okay, this was a targeted attack, and I think that what we saw here, what was striking about this, first of all, I mean it's monstrous when you look at this. When I think about it, the victim, Mrs. Guthrie, laying home in her bed, and then this creature coming into her room and taking her forcefully. If that doesn't send a shiver down your spine about the malevolence and evil that's at play here, nothing will. So it really breaks my heart that she had to experience that. Um, this video really shows preparation. Now, I know that it's a little incongruous because we look at how he dealt with the discovery of the doorbell camera, picking up those leaves. That's incongruous. You would think that if he had that information to begin with, he would have brought something like a piece of tape or some paint to paint over it. So that's a little incongruous on this, but I do believe that this shows the intent to commit a devastating crime like what occurred.
I mean, yeah, it's truly terrible what happened to Nancy Guthrie. And President Trump, he was posting threatening the death penalty if the suspect does not return Nancy Guthrie. What are your thoughts on whether local authorities should be leading this case versus maybe potentially having the FBI lead? This has been a talking point.
Oh, very much so. And I have some serious questions about the leadership capabilities of Sheriff Nanos. He has shown himself to be um, having some serious issues regarding leadership. When I say that, his lack of cooperation with the FBI, which was revealed even by an FBI press release regarding the DNA evidence discovered on one of the glove that was found 2 miles away. For some reason, the sheriff made a determination to send it to a private lab that he has used in the past rather than submitting it directly to the FBI, which is mind-boggling to me. Add to that the mistakes made during the release of the crime scene at such an early state. That was unforgivable as far as I'm concerned when it comes down to conducting a serious investigation. There has been a lot of discussion internally through my sources regarding the competence of the sheriff and his lack of leadership abilities that had been demonstrated a lot of times during this investigation and prior.
Okay, Randy, just one last thing. What role has Savannah Guthrie played? Posting videos that have kept the public's interest, public attention on this investigation.
Well, I've been around a long time, as you well know, and I don't remember the last time a crime like this has captured the attention that it has, not just in the United States, but around the world. I liken this to the Charles Lindbergh baby kidnapping of the last century when the world was captivated by it. And we're in the modern day era of communication and where everyone has access to this type of news. And I think that Savannah's role has been that of the grieving, daughter. If you don't feel something when you see her videos and the pain etched on her face and that of her families, then there's something radically wrong with you if you don't feel that. But unfortunately, people that are capable of doing this type of crime, they have no conscience, they have no humanity. They are predators, and unfortunately the reality is that predators do exist among us, and this is a stark example of just that.
Yeah, and our thoughts are with Savannah Guthrie and her family and Nancy Guthrie, and we sincerely hope that she is returned alive and well. But Randy, thank you so much for giving us your insight. So useful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
The Justice Department is investigating Michigan schools to determine whether they're including gender ideology in regular class time. The investigation targets 3 public school districts: Detroit, Guthrie, Lee, and Lansing. If the investigation determines that sexual orientation and gender ideology content is included in any pre-K to 12 classes, DOJ will examine whether the schools will have notified parents of their right to opt their children out of such instruction. The DOJ says this Department of Justice is fiercely committed to ending the growing trend of local school authorities embedding sexuality and gender ideology in every aspect of public education. It adds that parents have the right to direct the religious upbringing of their children and can opt out of ideological instruction that conflicts with their religious beliefs. Texas is suing baby monitor company Lorex for hiding its ties to China. This is the 3rd such lawsuit by Texas this week, targeting companies tied to the Chinese Communist Party. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says Lorex baby monitor cameras and other products contain components provided by Dahua. It's a Chinese company tied to the Chinese regime's military, and its products are designed and designated a national security risk by the U.S. Paxton says such technology could potentially allow the Chinese regime to exploit the home security systems of Texans at any time. His statement reads, quote, "Any company that allows the Chinese Communist Party to threaten American safety and security will face the full force of the law." The lawsuit comes after Texas also sued network equipment company TP-Link and drone company Anzu Robotics over China ties this week. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg testified yesterday in a landmark Los Angeles trial in which social media platforms are accused of using addictive features that harm children. NTD's Christina Corona was inside the courtroom and has the latest on what the jurors heard.
We're here outside the U.S. courthouse where Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg is testifying in a major social media addiction lawsuit. The plaintiff's attorney, Mark Lanier, pressed Zuckerberg on Meta's focus on getting young users onto social media. The case centers on a woman identified as Kaylee GM, now 20, who says she started using social media as a child, became addicted, and that it worsened her depression and suicidal thoughts. On the stand, Zuckerberg told jurors children under 13 are banned from Meta platforms, but admitted some minors still access Instagram in other ways, such as lying about their age. He said Meta removes accounts when it discovers users are underage. Plaintiff's attorney Mark Lanier pushed back, questioning whether Meta can seriously expect young children to read lengthy terms and conditions before signing up. Lanier also pointed to internal documents suggesting Meta estimated millions of underage users were on Instagram. He then questioned Zuckerberg about internal milestones tied to time spent on the app, including targets like 40 minutes per day in 2023, rising to 46 minutes by 2026. Zuckerberg said, quote, "The milestones are a process we have internally to be able to measure across our industry to measure if we're on track." Outside the court, parents and survivor families called for tougher laws to protect children online.
So therefore, we cannot have our children to have access to these platforms in their current status unless legislation's passed that will force them to make these changes that are necessary to make their platforms designed by safety.
Zuckerberg rejected claims that social media is intentionally addictive or harmful, describing it as a tool people naturally return to for connection and information. This case is one of more than 1,000 lawsuits accusing Meta and YouTube of having addictive design features that can harm children. Reporting from downtown Los Angeles, Christina Corona, NTD News.
Joining us to discuss this further is Caroline Calicut, social media manager for the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. Caroline, thank you for joining us today. Good afternoon to you. So this case is focused on finding out whether there was intentional disregard at Meta for the health of young social media users. So to what extent can these companies be blamed for addictive nature of social media?
I think this watershed case draws to mind early tobacco litigation. It basically comes down to whether the designers of these platforms knew that their product is harmful and whether they have the associations and the resources to do something about it. That's what they're trying to prove in this case, that these platforms are addictive and harmful by design, and that there's something Meta could be doing about it that they're choosing not to do to prioritize profit and engagement over protection.
Okay, so Caroline, let me ask you, from your vantage point, from your experience working at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, what impacts do you see from the use of social media among young people?
I think as a social media user myself and as someone who works on social media daily, it's easy to see the impact that social media, particularly the harmful and targeted algorithms and ads, have on young people. It's been proven with lots of statistics that young people are negatively affected, such as their body image. Young women have more negative views of themselves based on the algorithms that they're being pushed to on social media. And young children are just very vulnerable, so specifically targeting them on social media will have an impact on how they see themselves and how they interact with people online in years to come.
So you said earlier this could be a watershed moment. What do you foresee as the impact? Could this be a turning point? You know, how is this going to influence how we allow online products and services to be marketed to children?
I do believe this is a watershed moment, especially if Meta is held accountable. This is just one small step in holding these big tech companies accountable for the harms that happen on their platform. Like I mentioned, big tobacco, lots of other corporations in the United States have these guardrails set up to protect people from the potential harms of their platforms. I believe this is just one small step that we can start to hold big tech accountable, have them make better safety protections and accountability protections for their platforms and the people that use it.
Okay, can you just give us some tangible things that, in your view, would actually, help children? Some things that you would like to see implemented on these platforms, like Instagram and Facebook, to protect young users.
Right. I would definitely like to see super strong age restrictions. I think Meta has the capability to do that with their AI technology, and whether they do or not, it comes down to what they want to do with that. So, super strict age restrictions, and then also just not targeting these young people with harmful, addictive algorithms that just keep them scrolling no matter what. I think Meta needs to prioritize the protection of these children, and that's why Nkosi is particularly interested, because these platforms also introduce the harm of exploitation and grooming online. So protecting children on these platforms would just go a really long way in protecting them in general, online and offline.
Do you think parents play a role here? What is your view on what parents should do?
Parents definitely play a role. I mean, parents can try to impact how their kids use social media and if they use it, but I think it comes down to both parents being held responsible and big tech for this as well, especially big tech, because it's their products and their platforms. Once kids get on those platforms, parents really don't have much control over how it's used, so that's why it comes down to this big tech liability and accountability.
Okay, maybe just one final thing here. Some tips you could give us, maybe to parents, to young people. Any tips you can think of that may be useful in this circumstance?
Right. I would suggest delay is the way. Stay off of social media if you can at a young age, and parents, just be checking your children's social media to see what they're up to on these apps as much as possible. And yeah, just make sure you see what they're interacting with, do what you can, and then hopefully cases like this will open up a whole new door for holding big tech corporations responsible for their end of the spectrum as well.
Well, all right, Caroline, such a pleasure to speak with you. Very insightful comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
On the way to Georgia, President Trump spoke to reporters on a variety of issues. He also commented on the former prince, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's arrest. Take a look.
Mr. President, you took a kind of a little bit of a swipe at AOC today, and I was just wondering...
Well, her performance was horrible. I was surprised, actually. I didn't know she was stupid.
So how would you have answered the question that she was asked about whether the U.S. should support Taiwan if they're ever...
Well, I would have just said that it's none of your business right now, because I wouldn't answer that question anyway. I wouldn't respond to a question like that. That's war. When it comes to war, you don't talk about your strategy. She could have done that very easily. She had no idea. I don't think she knew what Taiwan was. That was the problem. But, you don't talk about military strategy. She could have taken an easy pass on that one. No, it was not a good answer. Could be death-defying, because I suspect that'll be used in every campaign for the next 30 years against her. It was not a good one, Peter. What do you think?
I got a question about something big overseas today. The former Prince Andrew arrested by the police there, related to something with Jeffrey Epstein. Do you think people in this country at some point, associates of Jeffrey Epstein, will wind up in handcuffs too?
Well, you know, I'm the expert in a way, because I've been totally exonerated. That's very nice. So I can actually speak about it very nicely. I think it's a shame. I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's a very, very sad. To me, it's a very sad thing. When I see that, it's a very sad thing. To see it and to see what's going on with his brother, who's obviously coming to our country very soon, and he's a fantastic man, the king. So I think it's a very sad thing. It's really interesting, because nobody used to speak about Epstein when he was alive, but now they speak. But I'm the one that can talk about it, because I've been totally exonerated. I did nothing. In fact, the opposite. He was against me. He was fighting me in the election, which I just found out through the last 3 million pages of documents. Yeah, please. Yeah, please.
You said today on Iran, bad things will happen if
Yeah,
Iran
bad
doesn't
things,
make
really
a
bad
deal.
things.
What will that
I'm not going to talk to you about that.
Okay, can you explain, though, what is the goal if there is a U.S. military
Well, we're
strike?
going to make a deal, or we're going to get a deal one way or the other.
But with a military strike, is it to wipe out their nuclear
I'm not
program?
going to talk to you about that, but we're either going to get a deal, or it's going to be unfortunate for them.
And you said today 10 days. Have you given them a deadline firm to make a deal?
I would think that would be enough time, 10, 15 days, pretty much maximum.
Mr. President, when you have the Board of Peace, obviously there's a lot of countries that you're trying to get on. What countries would you like to see join the Board of Peace the most?
Well, we have a lot that are on, and we have a lot that are going through the process of getting on. They have to get legislative approval, etc. And we've had billions of dollars put up already by the countries that are on. You saw some of the big players today. It's been very successful. Everyone's going to want to be on. Everyone wants to be on. Some have to go back to their legislatures to get approval.
Would you want like China or Russia, any of those guys?
I would love to have China and Russia. They've been invited. Yeah.
Something that got a lot
You
of
need both. You need all persuasions. No discrimination.
something that got a lot of attention this week. Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. You know.
So aliens are real?
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. Do you believe it, Peter?
Well, the president can declassify anything that he wants to, so if you want to make an announcement.
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
We know illegal aliens are real.
Yeah, illegal. Only illegals. What else?
Based on what you've been told, what do you think happened to Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy?
Boy, it's so crazy. It's so bad. I didn't like when they were talking about going after the pacemaker and you know, before they even started going after it, they're coming and reporting it. So if in fact they could do it that way, the person would say, well, I'm not going to let that happen, right? So bad things would happen if he not going to let that happen. I can't imagine why they would have done that. And just in terms of strategies, one little piece, I don't know, but we have to start reporting on other subjects also and see what happens. It's a very sad situation.
New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani is laying out plans to deal with New York City's $5.4 billion budget gap. 2 plans have been laid out so far. NTD's Sean Marshall has details.
New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani is sending an ultimatum to Governor Kathy Hochul. He says there are 2 paths of fixing New York City's budget deficit.
The first path repairs the structural imbalance between the city and the state. We want to work with Albany to raise personal income taxes by 2% on the 33,000 New Yorkers earning more than $1 million a year, and to raise corporate taxes on the most profitable corporations.
At a separate event Tuesday, Governor Hochul said that Mamdani needs to go back to the drawing board. Mayors are having to do what they have to do. I'm not supportive of property tax increases. I don't know that that's necessary. That's after giving City Hall an extra $1.5 billion on Monday.
First off, this is a preliminary plan, and this is really the start of Mamdani negotiating with the state.
And there are 2 paths that we can walk. One that offers long-term stability, and a second one with significant pain that we deeply hope to avoid.
My initial reaction is, it's never great when we're going to increase property taxes, but who's really going to take the hit on this? The market is really the tale of 2 ends. So we have the high-end luxury market. They're really looking at things, trophy properties, long-term hold. They're going to be less affected. So who's really going to be affected by the increase in property taxes? First-time buyers. And first-time buyers are already dealing with so many challenges, especially with affordability. They are much more sensitive to an increase in interest rates, volatility in the stock market, and any levels of policy change. So that's really who's going to be hit the hardest here.
Once again, I'm calling for Albany to end the drain. There is no third option of failing to balance the budget.
Andrew Rain, the president of the Citizens Budget Commission, also pushed back against the 2-option plan. He said the best option, dig into the agencies, identify spending that is helping New Yorkers and keep it, identify spending that is not helping New Yorkers and shrink it.
I'm not surprised. We saw this showdown with Hochul and Albany legislatures coming. This is a game that is played politically between the mayors of New York and governors when there's a major, when there's a budget.
However, in order to get to this point of closing the gap on both this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, we are forced to raid the Rainy Day Fund, the Retiree Health Benefits Trust Reserve, and to increase property taxes across these other years.
Many outer borough residents that live in detached homes tend to have higher property tax rates versus folks who live in luxury condominiums in Manhattan. Okay, this will exacerbate that tax burden on hardworking New York City taxpayers. This money grab is really the only vehicle at the mayor's disposal. He does not have the power to raise corporate taxes or personal income taxes. He can only raise property taxes. So this 9.5% property tax increase is concerning to a lot of hardworking New Yorkers and also the business community.
The city's budget documents claim that Mamdani's budget would be an estimated $122 billion by the end of fiscal year 2026 and grow to $127 billion by 2027. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
What will President Trump address in this year's State of the Union, and how does America differ now from his first term? Join NTD's Steve Lance, Tiffany Meyer, and Mari Otsu on February 23rd at 6 p.m. Eastern for a preview of the biggest topics in the State of the Union.